Thank you for joining me for another quick hits conversation. Today, I would like to talk about how do you forgive someone who isn't sorry? How do you let go of something when someone doesn't think they did you wrong? And Kristin, before we turned on the recording, you had a comment. I would love to kick it to you first.
I think they're two different things. I think forgiving somebody and letting go are completely different things. You can do one and the other, or one and never the other, and there's value in looking and separating them.
Okay, so let's talk about the difference between forgiving someone and letting go of a hurt.
Forgiving someone, as far as I'm concerned, is what we do for ourselves. We forgive someone so that we are not in pain anymore.
Okay.
But that doesn't affect how we might end up treating them going forward. If we want to forgive somebody who's close to us and give them a fresh start, that's one way of going. But if we want to forgive somebody who can't even admit that they've done something wrong, we're doing that for ourselves, and we still have to hold them accountable for what they did wrong and learn a lesson, not go there again, not allow it again. They're just very different. But the forgiveness is all about us. It's really not about them at all.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess you could forgive somebody and still take them through court and take all their money, couldn't you? You know, you could forgive them and yet still have justice to be seen. So that does make sense to me. I think going back on the original question, you know, forgiving somebody who isn't sorry, there's a big storyline in here about internal and external for me. So your forgiveness, I own forgiveness, nobody else. So I choose to be forgiving or not forgiving, but I've also chosen the emotion beforehand that's created a situation where I have to forgive, if you know what I mean. If you didn't have that emotional feeling, you wouldn't need to forgive it. So for instance, if somebody stole money off you and you didn't care, so what? But if you're bothered by it, it creates an emotion that you choose to have. So I think forgiveness is internal. And I think the not saying sorry, that's external. And I think so connecting the two is quite complex. And yet we do.
Yeah. Wayne?
Yeah, very much along the same lines in that there are definitely separate pieces between asking for forgiveness from someone else, receiving it, and offering it and or allowing it from the person who is on the side of being wronged, which, as Tim was saying, that's your own judgment somehow in there. Sometimes it is more objective, but it's always subjective.
For me, there's something about, for me to let go of what someone hurting me is, I'm clean, I'm clear, I'm good, your stuff is your stuff, my stuff is my stuff, we're good. Forgiveness is more of a personal conversation with somebody of, let's talk about what happened and make sure it doesn't happen again. So for me, to forgive someone who isn't sorry isn't really a thing. Now I can let go of it, yes, but to forgive someone, I feel like it requires a conversation.
And I'm cautious about the letting go piece, because as Kristin mentioned, the idea that there's a lesson to be learned here. There may be behavioral changes on either side, and we can't count on them to change their behavior. So we may need to take those steps and say, you know what? I forgive you, but there's not trust there at the moment. There's reasons to keep the relationship in a different place than it was. It's not a matter of I'm going to wave my hands and everything will go back to the way it was.
I don't know, definitely not. Do you think that letting go of the hurt means letting go of the lesson?
If all I hear is letting go, I have this picture of, and we're going back to where it was. Rewind, start again.
I think that letting go makes me think of forgive and forget, and the forget part I think is never appropriate.
Right.
So I associated letting go with forgetting.
Okay. Interesting. Okay.
I'm also intrigued, Robyn. This is great. I'm also intrigued, Robyn, with the fact that in order to forgive, you need to have a conversation. And I'll tell you why I'm intrigued. One, I don't get that at all. For me, forgiveness is in my gift to choose to forgive or not. And I don't need to tell anyone. I don't need to broadcast it. Forgiveness is my own. Now the danger is if I have somebody used the word feeling wronged. I think that's good. If I have a sense of wrongedness, by taking it to the other person, the perpetrator, if you like, it could get worse, because I've already got that sense of wrongedness, and I'm going along for forgiveness. It's almost like you're giving them permission to have another crack. And for me, I'm like, I don't want to take that risk. So for me, do you know what? I'm going to forgive, and that's that. Just in my own heart, I forgive them. Doesn't mean I won't pursue it or not let go, but it's just a sense of I'm no longer wronged.
It occurs to me that we may be using different definitions of forgiveness, that it means different things to us. So let's talk about that. What does it mean to forgive someone?
I can forgive a debt the same way I can forgive the way somebody wronged me. If I believe that that person isn't capable of actually coming to the table, so I don't require the conversation that you spoke about. I look at forgiveness as 100% my choice in how to let go of my anger. It's my anger, it's my frustration, it's my opportunity to let go of it.
So I think, I've got an example in my head. I'm not sure. In the UK, there are many cases of incidents where there's been mass killings or, terrible tragedies. And then a group of people get together, the families, the wronged parties, and then begin a process of many years of retribution, court cases, and we will not give in, we will fight. And I whilst I think they believe their cause is just and correct and they're fighting for the right, all it does seem to do is eat them up. And my view on forgiveness is not forgetting the importance of the people who passed away or whatever happened, or the incident that happened and the importance of that. The difference is just whoever the perpetrator was, not letting them eat you up. That to me is the forgiveness.
Interesting. Okay. Wayne, what about you? What does forgiveness mean for you?
Yeah, I think it's similar in that it is releasing the angst, if you will, around the incident and saying, you know what, I'm giving myself permission to release that.
So then, is there not a breakdown between letting something go, releasing the anger and dealing with that, and forgiveness? Do we not have the disconnect?
It depends on how you define letting go.
Yeah, so letting go implies to me dropping it, doesn't it? So for instance, Kristin said, if somebody owed me money and I forgave them because I know it's not coming and they can't afford it. And do you know what? That's okay. I'm good with that. To the point of, well, I want the money back. That, they're two different things. And letting go is saying I'm not getting the money back. Forgiving them is the feeling that you have about the fact they haven't paid you back.
And maybe it's forgiving in the sense in that example of releasing the emotion around the debt still being outstanding versus letting go, meaning forgiving the debt in the sense of making it zero.
It's emotional and practical, isn't it? My emotional feeling is I've lost a loved one, and the practical thing is, that it happened. And and as I said at the beginning, I think it's a good example of you can forgive somebody and still take them through court and sue them for everything they've got.
See, I view it differently. I feel like I can let go of the emotion. I cannot be attached to it. I can certainly go drag them through court and whatever and be fine with that. But forgiveness for me is the relationship between us. And so that's why when people say, well, you have to forgive them even if they're not sorry, I'm like, nah, there's a two-way street there for me.
So do you think it is part of your journey of forgiveness then, Robyn? You feel that you need to influence them in some way?
No, I just need to have a conversation, maybe closure. Maybe it's closure. I'm like real time having this conversation and we have 30 seconds left and I'm like, now I don't know.
Well, I think if you tie forgiveness to being a victim of somebody else, then you might feel like you need closure. But if you can separate, if you can say forgiveness means I'm no longer a victim, and that might allow you to approach how you approach them differently. There are people in my life who have done great harm or great disservice, and I have to forgive them so I don't spend my life being angry and victim.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, and that's our 10 minutes, and I feel like I'm less informed than I was when I started. I feel like there's a bigger conversation to have here. So thank you so much for having it with me, and we'll have to do it again really soon.